Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are listening from. Welcome to another webinar hosted by Secure Intelligence Limited. And in today's webinar, we'll be looking at compliance and governance in the cloud. So part of the major key points that we'll be trying to drive today is how to ensure regulatory adherence. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we have some few housekeeping rules that we need to, know about as we go into the webinar proper. First off is that this session is being recorded and it will be uploaded on our social media channels. So which means that after this webinar, you can always catch the recording on our social media channels. The second is that you can always raise your hand. If you have any question, if you have any contribution, you can raise your hands. And if the speaker feels he wants you to talk, he's going to obviously allow you to talk. However, you can also drop your question in the Q&A. Okay, so there's a Q&A button right on your screen. You can always click on that button and put your question, and we are going to answer the question during the webinar or after the speaker finishes his presentation. So we are Secure Intelligence Limited, and we are CIL teams. We call ourselves CIL teams, and we are solution builders. We apply technology to drive effectiveness, to drive agility, and also growth for businesses, right? So we are positioned to help enterprises to scale globally. We employ some certain things, right? Why we bring in all of our experts through, we employ all of this to help businesses position globally and also to scale globally. Can you move to the next slide? We have our speaker currently, and our speaker is ready for us. Rahim is our DevOps, one of our compliance and governance, our CPO speaker for today, and he's a seasoned speaker, right? He has a lot of expertise when it comes to governance in the cloud, when it comes to understanding regulatory adherence. He understands everything around cloud platform operations, and he is ready for us. Rahim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I can.
Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Emeka. So as Emeka has rightly mentioned, I'm a cloud engineer at Secure Intelligence Limited. My name is Rahim Alaimi. So we'll be looking at today's webinar, which is compliance and governance in the cloud, ensuring regulatory adherence. Right. So this is the agenda before us. Right. We have an objective of the webinar. What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? Like if we are trying to assess what we've achieved by being a part of the webinar today. So we're looking at that. Then also be understanding what compliance and governance in cloud entails. What are the things that are meant to have in place to ensure that we are highly compliant, right? Then we'll also be looking at AWS compliance frameworks. So AWS has some laid down frameworks, principles, models that they have put out into the public for public consumption. So we're looking at also their compliance and governance services. Right? AWS has some services that ensure that workload deployments in the cloud are highly compliant. So just for us to key into those services and start using them. Then we're looking at AWS continuous compliance and monitoring services. So it's a continuous process, how we want to continuously optimize our environment for compliance. Then we'll look at AWS security and threat detection services, also encryption and data protection services. So all of this is just to ensure that our workloads are compliant. So then finally, we're looking at implementing best practices and strategies to mitigate compliance risk. So yes, we might have different knowledge of doing things, but are those things the well-laid principles? Are they the well documented best practices for us to adopt in our organization workload deployment and management? Then we'll also be showing us some of the routine checks we do here in Secure Intelligence Limited under the cloud platform operations engineering domain, in terms of when we are looking at our customers' workload, the kind of things we check in their environment to ensure that those systems are highly compliant, right? So now we'll be looking at the objective of the webinar. So today's webinar, as I said, is about compliance and governance in the cloud, how we want to ensure our deployment, our resources in the cloud, right? In the cloud, you know, AWS, yes. So, but it cut across other cloud service providers. So we want to ensure that those resources that we've deployed are actually compliant based on industry-specific guidelines and other practices that organizational bodies have defined for organizations or companies to adopt. All of this is to ensure that we adopt the CIL triad, which is a confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data in the cloud. So this is like the summary of what the compliance and governance in the cloud wants us to adopt, basically. So now we'll be looking at understanding what this compliance and governance means. So what do they mean, basically? So we said earlier, it's about ensuring we adhere, we adopt industry-specific regulations and standards by following policies, procedures. So our workload resources deployment and how we create resources, manage them in the cloud. So are we actually doing things in the wrong way while we think we're actually following what is right? So compliance requires continuous monitoring and auditing to meet legal and regulatory requirements. So because while we don't architect our workload in the best way and format, right? So we are liable to be sold by our clients because perhaps we expose their data into the public internet, for instance. People are buying customers' data and all of these things. So to avoid or to mitigate such scenario, so we need to create a system of compliance so that we are adopting those things. And whenever, let's say, an external body wants to audit our system, so we are good to go. We don't need to bother or become to panic about that. Then governance, on the other hand, is how we are able to define roles, responsibilities, and processes within our cloud environment to ensure that every individual that gain access into our accounts, whether as an employee of that organization, or let's say we are bringing somebody from another organization to gain access into our accounts, like we have defined roles, we have defined responsibilities that they have to adhere to. Are we giving an external body full access to our account? That's a very poor and bad practice, right? So this is what governance entails. So compliance and governance are like the two wings of a bird. So they move hand in hand. So when we bring these things together, we are able to do what? To ensure data protection, to manage our risk in the cloud, and also to operate with integrity, right? In such a way that data of customers are not tampered with. It's like the way those data come in are the same way they leave without any form of interference or getting on undue access into those data. So in some way, we are trying to adopt the best practices that AWS has laid down for us. So now we're looking at the framework that AWS has defined for us to adopt compliance measures, right? So we can talk that, okay, compliance and governance and risk management, these are some of the things we need to do, but what framework are there in the public for us to adopt? So AWS has defined this framework, this pillar, like time immemorial, for customers to be aware of what they do as an organization to ensure that their infrastructure architectural model, it follows a certain framework or certain model, or certain principle. Right, so those frameworks are called the AWS well-architected framework. So the summary of what this framework basically wants to achieve for us is what compliance. We might discuss, okay, something has to do with cost, something has to do with operational excellence, performance, efficiency, and all of these things. But the summary of what we want to achieve at the end of the day is we are compliant to regulatory bodies. So the first one we're looking at is operational excellence. So this basically looks at the processes we defined and procedures to ensure that we deliver business value to our customers. So we don't want to create an environment where we think as an organization we are performing well. Yes, we are gaining uh, the expected profits, the revenue we've projected for a particular quarter within the year. Yes, we are gaining, we are benefiting. But our customers, our clients deriving the business value we promise them. So all of these things are defined within the operational excellence. So this is one of the framework that we need to adopt. Then the second one is security. So security pillar, right? It shows it's focuses on protecting data of customers. Like we know how security is very important even outside AWS cloud or outside any of the cloud service providers, or let's even say on-premises data centers. Let's look inward. So the way we manage our own systems, we don't rent an apartment, and we are lax about the security measures we've created. So let's say for instance, we are living in an estate, right? So an estate basically would have an external security measure for anyone who wants to gain access into the estate would be questioned, would not just gain access, move anywhere they want to move, and that's or no. They'll be questioned, where are you going to? What do you want to see? Okay, after providing the details, most likely they'll contact the person you mentioned to confirm if that person is expecting the visitor, right? And even at that, there will be security measures from the beginning of the estate. Let's say the adoption of CCTV cameras, right? Even if the person gets to the entrance of the person he wants to visit, it doesn't just barge into. There's still a perimeter of, let's say, fence or a gate. And even after gaining access into the residence of the person, the space you'll be sitting will be defined. So you don't have access to every part of the person's residence or home, right? So you have a defined place, let's say the visitors' sitting room, the visitors' restroom, and all of these things. So these are some of the things we define to ensure that our resources that we've deployed in the cloud, they adopt the same scenario I just depicted for us. So we are able to have different layers of security protection across our data, our systems, right? And we're able to also detect threats and also to adopt compliance with security policies, right? Then reliability. So this is to ensure that our workloads that we've hosted, that we are managing in the cloud, to ensure that they are highly available, in as much that none of the cloud service providers, even AWS, assures 100% of availability. We have, let's say, an S3 bucket. They said it has what 11 nines, 99.99. I'll count up to 11 of it, right? So there's a possibility that a system, a server, would go down, right? So AWS tells us to architect our workload by following best practice regarding reliability to ensure that our workloads are not deployed into just say a one availability zone. Let's say in a particular region, we have at least 2 or 3 availability zones. So we don't just deploy all of our resources, let's say EC2 instances in just one availability zone within one region. That's a very bad practice to adopt, because if that availability zone goes down, which there's a possibility it can go down, right? meaning the whole system has gone down, and you start getting calls from your customers, raising support tickets, sending emails, like you lose customers at the end of the day. And if this happens, then like regularly, then you're out of business. So to ensure you don't go out of business, you need to adopt this framework, this pillar under the well-architected framework. We also look at performance efficiency. So we are able to define or to architect, or we should be able to architect our infrastructure in such a way that we reduce any form of manual processes, right? We ensure that we adopt a lot of automated processes, whether through the use of pipelines or even measures. Let's say you want to patch a server, you adopt automated patches, and you want to back up your servers, you need to adopt automated backing up. So you don't need to be there every day, which is very time tasking and tedious. And there's a possibility you miss out some fine-grained details when you are doing that. So you can adopt all of these practices, right? So, and then finally, we look at cost optimization. In as much that we want to provide business value to our customers, to our clients, we also need to ensure that we are not spending more than what we are gaining, which is loss at the end of the day. So we need to try to define or to architect our workload, or to re-architect our workload in such a way that we are providing business value to our customers, and then we are also reducing the amount of cost we are spending in managing the infrastructure. So this is what a well-architected framework that ensures compliance it provides for us. So let's look at the next slide. So second AWS compliance framework we're looking at is AWS shared responsibility model. So AWS has defined something for us, like it's out there in the public, it's not an in-house affair. So AWS have defined what they want to do, or what they've stated they'll be responsible for, which is what we call security of the cloud. And they say, okay, we are the ones responsible for the hardware, that is the server racks, the servers themselves, then the routing, the routers, all of these things within a data center, the data center itself. So they are the ones responsible of buying the equipment, the infrastructure, also to maintain cooling, right? You know, when servers work over time, they will produce or generate a lot of heat. So they are the ones responsible to take care of those cooling measures, right? They are also the ones responsible for the networking of those servers within a particular data center, so they can communicate with themselves as needed based on different configuration. Let's say a particular customer is using dedicated hosting or dedicated instances, right? So, and also to ensure networking between data centers within a particular availability zone, and also to ensure the networking within availability zones within a region, to ensure they have what low latency network fiber optic cable. So these are some of the things AWS have defined, and they've told us, right, as customers, that these are the things they are responsible to do. While on the other hand, they've also defined what the customers have been defined to do, their responsibility, which we call security in the cloud. So customers are the ones that are meant to focus on data protection. How are we actually protecting our data, securing them? So AWS has no insight to protect your data yourself, or to even know the content of what the data is all about. No, they don't have access to that. So they've defined that clearly. So you can't, at the end of the day, sue AWS that, oh, an hacker got into my AWS system, so, and they've taken over a particular server, so I have to sue you, because why would that happen? No, AWS is not primarily in charge of that. There are other advanced or premium services that AWS renders to cater for those services, but primarily it's not AWS responsibility. So likewise, you're the one that you're in charge of the identity management. You are the one responsible to create users within an account, to create roles, to create user groups, to create policies and procedures within AWS. So you define who are the people responsible to create resources, to manage them, to list them out, to update them, to delete them, or you're the ones responsible to create roles that will communicate within themselves. So you want a Lambda function to communicate with an S3 bucket, or S3 bucket to communicate with a DynamoDB, and all of these measures. So you are the ones that should define the roles. So AWS has spelled that. Likewise, application security. So you are the one as a customer that should create a measure in place that will reduce all forms of threats from the outside world. So you don't open, for instance, you don't open direct access into your application or into your database from the outside world. This is a bad practice, right? So there are a lot of things you could put in front of that, like different layers. Let's say you put AWS WAF, Web Application Firewall, or you put AWS Shield or Shield Advanced, or you put CloudFront, or you put load balancers in front of your application, so that any requests that is coming that is having some malicious intent, let's say you have a DDoS attack, that's distributed denial of service, that will make servers to go down, sending off, let's say, 1 million requests per second. So you're able to put a lot of measures in front of your servers before they even get to your servers, if they even end up getting there in the first place, or to prevent SQL injection and other things like cross-site scripting attack. So these are some of the things you need to put before your servers, not even talk about your databases. So you are the ones responsible for this kind of measures, not AWS. So this is one of the another framework that AWS has defined. And the summary of this is that AWS said that it's to ensure what clear accountability. So everybody knows what they are responsible for, and to ensure that the environment, which is the cloud environment, ensures you adopt and maintain a secure platform, so to speak. Now, so let's look at some of the AWS services that you can leverage on, that ensures compliance and governance in the cloud. So the first one we're looking at is AWS IAM. So it's a centralized platform where you can control access into your accounts, such as authentication, authorization, as I made mention earlier, creation of users, roles, and other things like that. So you can also create or integrate into the account, such as the use of MFA, multi-factor authentication for the root account user, whether it's an hardware device, that's MFA hardware device, or a virtual device, to ensure that nobody gain access into the account except the person who's authorized, who has the access himself. So let's say the password get leaked, for instance, or something around that. So the person can get access to that since you have the MFA device with you, whether the hardware or the virtual one. And you also is also encouraged for us to delete the access key IDs and the secret access keys for the root user, right? So that nobody can programmatically gain access into your account. Likewise, look at AWS organizations. So AWS organization is a centralized platform where you're able to manage multiple accounts. So let's say you have accounts for marketing, accounts for cloud engineers, accounts for backend engineers, accounts department also. So we need to define these accounts, and we know what each of these accounts are doing. And at the management level, which is at AWS organizations, so you're able to define what we call the SCPs, service control policies, to define policies for what an account will be able to do, what they're able to do in that account. So you define that. So AWS organizations made this very easy, because we have issues where people, or we find a situation where people are struggling to manage several things happening in just one account. So there are different ways to split up this account, create multiple accounts, while they are still under the broad account, which is the AWS organization management account. The next slide, please. So we also look at AWS continuous compliance and monitoring service, which is called AWS config. So you're able to continuously assess our environments to ensure that they are configured as expected. So any configuration that does not fall in line with the defined industry best practice will be flagged, right? And you can quickly remediate such such as scenario. Let's say an example, an S3 bucket was created and was open to the whole world, which is a very bad practice. So there are ways to reduce. For instance, you block public access. That's one of the ways. And we can also restrict, right, only those who are authorized. Like we have an application, you create a username, a password. So only those who have created accounts in that application are authorized to gain access to that S3 bucket. Even at that, the kind of access they have is defined for a limited amount of time, right? So should in case you have any question, you can put it in the income message. And when we are done with the webinar, we'll provide the answers to that. Now, in continuation, we'll look at AWS CloudTrail and Amazon CloudWatch. So we are able to log and monitor accounts, activities, and server activities. So we have what we call logs and metrics. So on the part of logs, we are able to see the requests that is coming to your application. You can see the IP addresses. You can see the time. These are some of the metadata that are defined in the log section. So you just create log groups and you're able to see this coming in like every second, like data is coming in, streaming in. So you can find all of these things measured. And likewise, server activities like metrics, right? So you can see the amount of CPU utilization that is like you can see how your servers are faring. Are they being overloaded, right? So perhaps you can adopt best practice like auto-scaling groups, load balancers, and all of these things. So all of this is just to ensure that we are following the best compliance and governance policies. Next slide, please. So also look at AWS security and threat detection services. That's AWS Security Hub and Amazon Inspector. So this is an interface, or these two services are interfaces that you can get security alert and compliance status. So you're able to, so Inspector scans like the servers, it scans our workload to see the loopholes basically, or the discovery it has detected. Let's say a particular security, because I mentioned earlier, like opening the whole world to have access to your S3 bucket. So let's say in an instance of a server, so like you're opening the whole world to gain access into your server directly. So the best practice that, or what an inspector can flag is that you shouldn't open all ports to your server. You can leverage on load balancers and all of these things. So AWS, Amazon Inspector flag that, and also flag what we call CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures. Because if you don't check things like this, like it's like you're having an opening into your house, not through your front door, let's say on your roof of your house, that anybody can gain access. Somebody that has, let's say, a drone can fly his drone and gain access to your house through the roof, see everything in your house by taking video coverage or conferencing of that, and goes away. That's an exposure. So you need to have a lot of systems in place, such as remediating those exposures by coming to Amazon AWS Security Hub, by updating your servers, a lot of things more than that, right? So these are some of the things that AWS Security Hub does for you. Then finally, Amazon Guard Duty, we're able to identify malicious activity in the account. Let's say a particular user is logging into the account several times, let's say 100 times within a minute, it flags that. Or yes, a particular IP address is eating your server many times. So Guard Duty, it detects any form of malicious or potential unauthorized behavior in your AWS system. The next slide, please. They also look at encryption and data protection services, where you can control the use of encryption keys, that is through the use of AWS KMS, Key Management Service. So you can control these keys, whether it's the symmetric keys or asymmetric keys. So you can locate it, such as the name depicts, is a key. Right? So you can put your encrypt your key, your your data in such a way that only the services that have access to gain access, let's put it that way, only the resources or services that has access to gain access to that resource will be able to. Any other resource that tries to do that will be denied. So that's what KMS it does. They also look at AWS Systems Manager Parameter Store, where you are able to centralize it. You can do that in a centralized platform by saving your passwords, secrets, certificates, and even database connection strings in such a way that nobody have access to it. You're only making reference to it whenever you want to need it in the application. Next slide, please. Right. So yeah, we are looking at implementing best practices and strategies for mitigating compliance risk. So before we proceed, you can book a one-on-one call with any of our team of experts so that the cloud platform operation engineers can take over your system by managing it properly for you in the industry best practices procedures. So looking at the best practices for us to adopt in order to mitigate compliance risk, the first one is we create a defined governance model where policies and procedures are created that we've defined in the organization to follow industry best practices. Also, we do regular audits and compliance checks on our systems. Are we actually following what we've defined? Like in a regular process. Within our organization, we try to do that audit even before an external body comes to audit our system. Second, we look at the importance of training and awareness for our employees to ensure that they know what compliance and governance in the cloud means, and they are adopting those procedures. Likewise, we ensure that the employees stay abreast to industry standards and regulations that are available. Thirdly, we look at risk assessment and management. So we are able to identify and evaluate compliance risk. What are the things within our organizations? What are the things that, let's say, a bad actor, that people who have bad intent could leverage on? Like we try to do evaluation of these things like time to time. Then we also implement mitigation strategies, how we want to mitigate those things that we've identified. Then finally, we should have a process of continuous improvement. So we should not be relaxed, stay in our comfort zone, saying, "Oh, we've actually defined it, the model, we've trained our employees, then we have risk assessment, mitigation management in our organization, and we just sit back and relax." No, we need to continuously improve our systems. Are there new updates to the policies we've defined in the past? So we need to adopt those things and update our systems. And also, most importantly, we leverage the new AWS services that AWS have defined. Let's say they created an AI service that does some of the things we do manually for us. So there's no harm in us adopting those framework so that our system will be highly compliant in the cloud. So now we'll be looking at a short demo of what we do here in Secure Intelligence Limited when we want to monitor our clients' workloads. I need to share the screen. Okay, so I'm in the account now. So let me log into the account and show us how we check the systems. the account I'll be showing us today is an account within Secure Intelligence Limited. So it's not customer account. So you shouldn't be wary or be concerned that, oh, am I sharing customer data? No, it's an account within Secure Intelligence Limited. And what we do basically here is to come here to practice a lot of things that we want to implement in our customers' environment. Let's say we want to create a POC, that's a proof of concept. So we come here and do that. So this account is basically for those of us in Secure Intelligence Limited. So I'll be showing us some of the services I made mention in the webinar. So we're starting with, let's say, okay, let me log in with another account. So we're starting with Security Hub. So Security Hub, as I made mention earlier, is an interface where we have defined alerts, security alerts, and you are able to find findings so we can mitigate a lot of things. So let me quickly move into the account now again. So you see earlier, I tried logging into a role. It said I don't have permission. So these are one of the measures we've defined. So the role I used earlier, right, is not allowed to access Security Hub, but the one I'm using now should have access to it. So okay. That is login. Let me open another service on the side. So we are done with that. Okay, it has opened now. So this is summary of what we have in the account. So say we have security standards. So it's still loading. We have some laid down standards, like I made mention in the webinar. We have some industry best practices standards. So we have this. So according to this standard, CIS, the Center for Information Systems, AWS Foundation's benchmark, right? So according to this framework or this standard, this system passed 6, failed 34, and the percentage is 15%. According to the PCI DSS, that's for payment card industry data security system, right? So it passed 23, failed 21, and the score is 52%. Then this another one, AWS Foundational Security Best Practices. It passed 199, failed 61, and passed. And this is the percentage, 77%. Right. So these are orders that I could enable. This is, as I said, this is our internal account. So you can see enable, enable, enable. So these are all other industry standards to follow, to adopt. And all of these things to ensure that our systems are highly compliant. So another thing we'll find within Security Hub, right, is the findings that Security Hub has done. It has scanned a lot of things in the account. So we have things defined for us on a pattern of security severity level in terms of resources, account, applications. So you have the amount of resources that have been found, right, according to different regions and accounts. So let's look at another section, which is findings by region. So you can find this critical, right? The number of resources that are critical are 265, high, medium, low. So these are different severity levels. So we can just quickly come here and try to mitigate those stuffs. So as I said, this is our internal account, so we shouldn't bother about this. So we care rather less about some of these things, and they are not actually that serious. So this is one of the things we check in our customer account. So as I said earlier, if you want us to do something similar for you in your organization, then you can book a one-on-one call with our team of experts so we can take that forward from here. Then another system or service we'll be looking at is IAM. So I mentioned that in the webinar, which is AWS Identity and Access Management. So here we are able to create user groups, users, roles, policies, right? So you can define all of this in your account. Yes, you might think, oh, it's not easy for one to just come here and create user groups, roles, policies. No, it's not as easy as it comes. there are a lot of things that should be in place for you to know how to go about these things. So you have an overview of what to do in this account. Like now it has showed us the users that last gain access or logged into this account. You can see the last activity. The ones that have MFA, you can see none of them have MFA. That's multi-factor authentication, right? So access key ID, key access, secret access key. Some of these things are here. So there are some things that you need to understand that actually bad practices, that a person who doesn't know these things would not know how to go about it. And you'd have issues wherein hackers gain access into your account and you don't know what's going on. Perhaps you can start mining cryptographic cryptocurrency coins on your servers and you'll just be getting high bills at the end of the day, right? So different things you can do here. You can also come to roles where you create policies and you attach them to roles and know how to do a lot of management in your account. So these are some of the things we need to understand as an organization without you architecting your infrastructure properly or checking them properly. You'd just be there, and in terms of compliance and governance, you'll be far away from those terminology. So we've come to the end of the webinar. So I'll be handing over to Dozie or Emeka to take over from me.
Rahim, please confirm that you can hear me.
Thank you.
Yes, I can hear
Are
you.
you currently back?
Thank you very much.
Jose, are you back?
It was very insightful. I'm sure a lot of us here have gained one or two things today. So just be taking questions and comments. If you have any questions, you can still drop your questions in Q&A section so we can address them. Right. So we have a few questions already. So on him, firstly, the first question is solely around general compliance and governance. Say, what are the key differences between traditional IT compliance and cloud compliance?
Between what?
Let me go over the question again. What are the key differences between traditional IT compliance and cloud compliance?
Yeah, so basically, when you look at traditional compliance, so most of the time it has to do with the location where that organization is hosting or is deploying the services. So we're talking about things that have to do with, let's say, data residency compliance measures. For instance, look at those people who are in the European region, right? So they have to be compliant to what we call the regulatory body, this GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So, or those people, that is to ensure that the data that of their customers or their citizens do not leave that region, right? Or those companies, organizations that have like some of their customers in that region to ensure that their data do not leave that region. Right. So that's in terms of traditional compliance measures. But for AWS as an entity, it's cut across a particular region, let's say European region or African region. So they embody this in their own system to ensure that regardless of where you find yourself, you need to still adopt some of these measures in place. So you are not limited to, okay, I am in Nigeria, I must, and my workloads are on premises. So I'm only concerned about Nigerian law, basically. So these are the key difference between the traditional IT compliance measures and the cloud compliance measures.
So thank you very much. That was a very interesting answer. Okay, so the second question is around the tools and technologies that we use for um, monitoring compliance and all that. So, what are the best AWS tools for monitoring and maintaining compliance on AWS infrastructure? So, take the question again.
Yeah,
What
so
are the best AWS tools for monitoring and maintaining compliance?
yeah, so although I mentioned some of them in the webinar, so which is AWS config to ensure that our resources are properly configured as the name depicts. They are well configured. So it flags whenever a particular resource does not follow the industry best practice. So you're able to identify those resources and provide remediation. So the first one is AWS config. So you also have Amazon CloudWatch, right, and Amazon and AWS CloudTrail to ensure that it's a continuous process. So it's not a point that, okay, it just checks once per day and that's all. No, it continuously checks like API calls into the account, how a resource is communicating with another resource within an AWS account, or how a user is doing a particular task within an AWS account. Let's say creating an S3 bucket, creating EC2 instances, or editing it, or deleting it. So all of these things are logged and tracked in AWS CloudTrail. So on Amazon CloudWatch, on the other hand, it looks at the logs of applications and also checks the metrics of the servers. Let's even EC2 instances or even Lambda functions. So it checks all of these things. So these are some of the AWS services that ensures continuous compliance measures.
All right. So thank you once again, Rahim. So I'll be taking one last question. So it's around the audit readiness. What are the necessary steps that a cloud engineer or someone managing an AWS infrastructure needs to prepare for a compliance audit?
Can you say that again, please? Didn't hear the question.
What are the necessary requirements in terms of what are the necessary requirements or essential steps you need to take when preparing for a compliance audit in the cloud?
Yeah, so the first one is having basic knowledge of compliance and governance, as I said in the webinar. So if one doesn't really understand what compliance and governance in the cloud means, then that's like a bad sign. So the first thing is having the appropriate knowledge required to adopt compliance. Even before an audit takes place, you yourself as a cloud engineer, you need to understand what client compliance and governance means. So that's the first one. The second thing, before you're having an audit, right? So you need to check some of the AWS services we made mention in the webinar that you are using. So see how far are you using those systems? Are you actually doing the necessary checks? Are your servers being patched, let's say on a defined schedule, let's say on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis? Or are your servers backed? Are they backed up? Your ABS volumes, like the storage volumes for a server, are they having snapshots? Are you getting a daily snapshots of these servers? Are you having backups of your ABS volumes? Are you having backups of your S3 buckets? Okay, let's say, okay, the snapshots have been backed up for several weeks, several months. What measure have you put in place to reduce the amount of snapshots you have in your account so you not compile or amass a lot of costs? So have you adopted a measure, let's say an example, by transferring those storage snapshots from EBS snapshots to, let's say, an S3 bucket with a low cost of saving, let's say S3 Glacier Archive, Deep Archive, something like that, where you can transfer those data into, let's say, for 60 days, 90 days, 1 year. So you have less of costs. And after 1 year, those data, it actually shows that if you are not gaining access to the data for 1 year, right, those data should automatically be deleted. So these are some of the measures you need to take in place before an audit comes, before you start preparing for an audit and start becoming to panic about that. So a lot of measures like this that you need to adopt, right?
All right, so thank you very much for him. So thank you once again for the entire webinar. It was a very interesting presentation. I'm sure a lot of us here have learned a few things and are ready to start exploring how we can ensure regulatory adherence and the cloud infrastructure. So if you are one of the people who found this webinar insightful, please, you can let us know by your reactions. Let's give a warm reactions to Rohim for this wonderful presentation. All right, so let's keep the reactions coming. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much. All right, so Rohim, thank you once again. So now, if you're looking to build AWS cloud, we are looking to migrate onto the AWS platform and also manage your AWS infrastructure. We at Secure Intelligence Limited are your go-to partners. So we'll provide you with the right tools and services to meet your AWS cloud needs. So if you're looking to migrate, you're looking to build on the cloud, we are looking to manage your cloud infrastructure, please do well to click on the link in the Q&A section and you can book a call with our team so we can discuss how we can help you with any of your cloud needs. So if you're also new to the Google Cloud environment, you are not left out. We have our CIL Academy, which is a branch of our Secure Intelligence Limited as a whole. You can learn and develop cloud-based skills and even become a certified cloud practitioner with the offerings we have on CIL Academy. All right, so we have our AWS skill builder and instructor-led trainings where we train individuals, corporate teams, businesses, relevant skills to create, build their AWS cloud infrastructure. And also, you're looking to start your journey into the tech space. We have our Zero to Techie program where you can start your career in cloud engineering, data engineering, as well as front-end engineering. So if you fall into any of these categories, click on the link, book a call with the team, and we'll be able to set you up with trainings with the right development plans that you need to improve your cloud skills. And for those of you who are preparing for your tech certification exams, including your certified cloud practitioner and other advanced certifications, we'd like to introduce WizLabs to you. So WizLabs is currently the leading exam institution. So it provides you with comprehensive study materials and you get 25,000 plus practice questions and hands-on labs and sandboxes that can help you prepare properly for your certification exams. And these readiness resources are not limited to just AWS. We have for leading technology vendors like Microsoft as well, then Google. So the great part is you get all of this for a discounted price of just 20,000 naira if you are getting the service from Secure Intelligence Limited. So once again, if you believe you fall into any of these categories, kindly click on the link in the Q&A section and schedule me and my team. So we also want you to be on the lookout for my emails. I'm sending this webinar replay so you can always go back and watch any part of this webinar that you may have missed. So we invite you to look out for our emails, and also you can join us completely if you want to be the first to know about all our upcoming events and programs. You can always connect and interact with us across all our social media platforms as well. So thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Esther here. Thank you once again. Enjoy the rest of your